That summer, I learned to swim at the old mill pond, when the sun hammered the water into a bright, patient surface, and dragonflies stitched the air with quick green threads. The bank smelled of damp earth and crushed mint, of hay drying on ropes, and bread cooling in Grandma's kitchen just across the road. The mill stood at the far end, a skeleton of wood and iron, and every afternoon a soft spray rose from the wheel, as if the pond itself exhaled. Grandfather stood there with his hat in his hand, boots muddy from the path, eyes mild under weathered brows. He did not shout. He spoke in the language of small gestures, the tilt of a hand toward the water, a patient pause, a nod to the rope swing. He was the kind of man who believed patience is a kind of strength, the way a farmer believes a long day will end with the supper kettle singing on the stove. "You'll be fine," he said, as if the water were a creature who could be coaxed to trust a quiet voice. "One breath, 2, 3, push away from the bank and don't look down." He kept his feet planted on the warm bank. I stood at the edge with legs that felt like loose sticks, the summer heat heavy on my shoulders, and the town's laugh drifting from the bakery and the lemonade stand. The first jump was a moment of shock and cold, a punch of air and a throat full of river. The water slapped my ears and filled my nose with something sharp and metallic, a scent of rain and coins and the earth under the surface. I learned that fear can press in like a blanket, heavy enough to smother a softer voice. But Grandfather's voice, quiet and sure, tugged me toward the surface, with the memory of the world still above. For a moment the bottom dropped away, and I could not tell where the air went. But then I remembered his words and began to move. The kick came, awkward and earnest, and I rose through a pale green light toward the sunlit air, where the world sounded a little different, less noisy, more honest. The rope swing creaked with a patient old sound, the way a grandmother's chair creaks when you know someone is about to tell you a story you've heard 100 times, but never quite the same. The moment was anchored by a swing of memory, a nurse of light on the water, a crown of cattails along the bank, and the soft thump of my heart beating in the hush between breaths. When I broke the surface, the world smelled of riverweed and the clean bite of summer, of lemonade sugar still on my tongue, and of the old mill's sighing wheel a mile away. My eyes found Grandfather, still at the margin, a small dark shape against the bright shimmer, and he gave me a nod as if to say that yes, I had found my own courage and the truth of what he had always told me. Water does not punish, it merely reveals. In the days that followed, I grew bolder, not because fear disappeared, but because fear learned what a hand feels like when it is held steady. I practiced again and again until my breath met the rhythm of the pond. Inhale, exhale, float, roll, kick, until I could ignore the town's chorus of voices and hear only the soft current that moved beneath the surface like a quiet neighbor watching. That summer thread, my first true swim, wove itself into the rest of my days. It wasn't a grand revelation, not a thunderclap on a calm afternoon, but a patient turning of the wheel inside me. I learned to listen, to wait, to hold back an impulse and count to 3 before leaping towards something uncertain. It's strange what a small ability will do to a person's life, the way it becomes a habit of the heart. I learned to measure my own corners, to map the edges of fear and choose to step across them slowly. With the sure grip in the present, I am old enough to know that this river memory does not belong only to that summer, but to every season that followed. The winters when the house grew quiet, the springs when the first croaks of frogs sounded like a chorus inviting someone to listen more closely, The autumns when the leaves turned the colour of old coins and the world seemed to tilt toward an ending you could feel but not name. Time has etched lines into my skin as if they were the river's own channels, and I walk with the same careful steps I learned on the pond's muddy bank, each year spelling out new patience in the spaces between breath and action. Fear still visits me, as all fear does, but now it is a small, quiet thing, a reminder that I think of grandfather at the margin, his presence a doorway to a gentler strength. He did not claim to erase fear. He taught me to walk through it with steady feet and a patient voice. Most of all, I remember the way the world smelled after a day of swimming, the damp wool of my clothes as they dried on the line, the soft, earthy scent of the bank, the way the river sometimes carried a trace of something sweet from the far fields. I remember the colour of the sky when the sun began to hang a little lower, a pale yellow that softened the edges of everything, and how the town's dogs would bark and then fall still, as if they too kept watch over a memory in which I learned to be braver than I believed I could be. That single summer gave me a language. It gave me a way to name the slow miracle of progress, how a life moves forward not with fireworks, but with the patient, repeated acts of showing up. It gave me a moral compass, too, the certainty that listening matters just as much as doing, that someone's quiet confidence can steady a frightened heart, and that a hand on your back can be a greater gift than words spoken aloud. Now, with the slow, sweet ache of age, I am grateful for the memory's simple mercy. It is a memory that does not demand to be flashy or remembered perfectly, only to be trusted when recalled. The mill pond has long since faded from the everyday world, its water long ago replaced by factory shadows and new winters. But the breath I learned to take there remains a steady rhythm in me. When I stand on my porch on summer evenings, I pretend I hear the old waters hiss and see the dragonflies flicker in the dusk, and I know I am not alone, that I did not begin with nothing but a fear and a wish to be elsewhere. What remains of that summer is not a trophy or a tale of conquest, but a method, an approach to life that began with the courage to dip a shoulder under the surface, to let the cold water teach me what warmth follows, the taste of the river on my tongue, the sound of grandfather's voice, the hush of the bank forever marked how I chose to walk through life, gently, with patient hands, with a willingness to teach others to breathe, to listen, to try again when the day feels too bright or too heavy. If there is any grace in aging, it is this, a kind of inventory of small, ordinary miracles that added up to a life. A summer holiday that does not end at the water's edge, but continues in the way I hold a friend's fear in conversation, in the way I steady a child's tremor with a soft word and a patient smile, in the way I watch the light fall across a quiet room and know that meaning still moves within the everyday. Time passes, and the river's memory travels with it, a faithful current that knows the shape of a life and refuses to let it fade. And so, as the days grow slower and the night settles with its own tender gravity, I lean toward the memory again, listening for the old, patient sound, the rope's gentle creak, the splash of air and water, the small rhythm of a breath held and released. It tells me what I have learned, what I still trust, that courage is not loud. It is a slow practice of showing up for the next moment, the next mile, the next breath. That the world will keep turning, the river will keep singing, and the heart, if it is kept kind, will remember long after the body has grown quiet. For all the ordinary days that followed that summer, for all the mornings when the sun's light fell softly on the kitchen chairs, and the kettle began its slow whistle. I am grateful for that first, stubborn friendship between fear and faith. I am thankful for Grandfather's